Welcome to Walk It Off's Happy Hour Hang. That's what
we're
we're calling it
doing
now.
here.
It is literally what we're doing. This is Walk It Off's midweek, let's put that in parentheses, Happy Hour Hang. And this is what we do when we're not on the air on WXNA-FM and WXNAFM.org on Sunday nights. We're right
A
here.
little addendum to the radio program, if you will.
A little appendix, if you will.
Just a little one, though.
Just a little one.
No,
My
don't go
tiny
with those big
appendix.
That's a problem.
I know. I've got a small appendix complex, but
Uh-oh.
I know. Sorry.
But hey, I've had a fat liver before, so.
Have you? Is that because is that because of all the? I was trying to think of like fatty alcoholic drinks, and then White Russian came into my mind. I was like, is that because of all the White Russians?
It was like, okay, how do you fix this? Well, you don't drink, and you don't eat red meat or fried foods. It's like, so I'm just gonna die.
I know. I do recall this, and the struggle at Gabby's is real. There's no doubt about it. That was very tough. I remember that. That was when you were doing the salad there, or the pasta salad. Sorry, the pasta salad, right? Instead of the French fries.
Yeah, I was taking it real easy on myself. I was getting a Philly cheesesteak with chicken instead of beef.
Incremental
really
changes.
Taking care of my health.
as your life coach would say, incremental changes, just a little bit at a time, get better every day. And it's kind of a joke saying life coach, but since we are doing a sports talk show, I always attribute this to Earl Watson, who was a Suns coach. But these quotes get messed up. I'm sure somebody else has said it, and it's probably not even his. But one of my favorite quotes ever in terms of like how to approach adversity, how to approach growth, how to approach a challenge is 1% better every day. It doesn't matter. 1% is great because it's relative, right? It's relative to where you were. That doesn't need to be a leap to the moon. 1%, it just means incrementally better. And every day you get better, that 1% grows. So it's a pretty cool way to look at it. And that's exactly what you were doing by switching to chicken. And that's why you're here today.
It is, man. That's solid advice. I like that. I absolutely will subscribe to that. If you make changes, even if they don't seem like much at the start, you're moving in the right direction. Things are going to improve from there.
The downside to this is if you are a Suns fan, that 1% better when you're a mediocre, if not crappy team, will never win you a championship.
Earl's not the coach anymore, is he?
No, he's not. Although one of my favorite coaches in Phoenix Suns history, an amazing players coach, an amazing talent developer. He is so good at that. Just wasn't the right time for him, I guess, and certainly wasn't the right situation because ownership was horrible and the opportunities just weren't that great for somebody to build an awesome resume. But I'm really hopeful to see him in a head coaching position down the road because I think what he did is left a great mark on a lot of those young players. Devin Booker, not aside, he, I think, is one of the more influential people in Devin Booker's professional career. I can't speak for Devin, but that's what it looks like from this perspective, and it certainly paid off.
Here on the Happy Hour Hang, you get a lot more Phoenix Suns talk.
That's true. That was a Phoenix Suns rabbit hole. I'm more willing to do that. A little bit more
insiders than we can do when we're on the radio on WXNA.
That's
talking about our national local programs, which is still the main focus of our show here too.
Still number one. There's no doubt about it.
Even though wearing the Kraken shirt right now.
Yeah, talk about a diversion, a sharp left turn here.
New York hat, hey.
The New York we could have expected.
Now I'm ready to roll.
But man. You came out with Seattle. It's like, what if I came out with I don't know, with a Golden State Warriors jacket or a jersey on? Come on.
That's a rival of your team, man. This one doesn't even exist yet, but they got a sweet logo, a better production video. That hype video was still great.
They're doing it well.
And nice shirt. So I think the Kraken will already automatically strip up to my third favorite NHL team the second they hit the ice.
That's impressive because
those nice colors.
Are there any teams that would compete with them for number 3? Like, I feel like you have to have some kind of affection for another NHL team that they're battling for? Or is it really just that far of a drop off after New York and Nashville?
It's a big drop off, of course. We've talked about it before. The Islanders are my team. I grew up with them, love them, been to so many games at the old barn down there. But after being in Nashville for as long as we have, obviously we have true deep affinity for our local teams, including the Preds. I'd say especially the Preds, with everything that we've gotten to go through being here for their runs in the playoffs and just being downtown and being a part of watching sports change the culture of this city and ingrain itself so much in Nashville's boom at the same time.
True.
We've had some special times watching Preds games.
There's
And
no
Sounds
doubt about it.
games and Titans games, but
The
yeah, Preds
Preds,
games really captivated the city differently.
I think we would feel differently if we'd have been on the air, when the Titans made those early 2000s runs, and even their 13-3 season in 2009, I think it was 2010. It was right when we started the show that the Predators took off too, and that was certainly more in line than the Titans were with the growth of Nashville too, which is just there's incredible parallels there. But I also love that you've got kind of a cool growth story in your Islanders in the way that team has created an identity around themselves and has an attachment to Nashville with Barry Trotz.
Exactly. Thank you, Preds.
I know.
With a little pit stop to win a cup for the damn Capitals.
I know. Just add to his resume and then move up to the Islanders. Crazy.
Where Lavi is now, it's a whole incestuous circle between those three teams at the moment.
Very much so.
But yeah, man, if you look at the drop off after that, there are not really any teams I root for. I've got a hockey fan's affinity for some Canadian teams. Obviously not the Maple Leafs after the John Tavares pajamas incident.
Yep, understood.
No other Metro teams. Obviously, those are all out as Islanders' enemies. Central teams, I would say, are pretty much out, but I'll admit to a slight affinity to the Minnesota Wild.
That's understandable.
Because I did like the North Stars as a young kid. The Minnesota North Stars were kind of cool. I had some relatives up that way. It just seemed like such a great hockey team. Brian Bellows and Mike Modano were fun in NHL 94 for the Sega Genesis. And that love did not transfer to the Dallas Stars. But when the Wild came back, and especially with, again, a nice color scheme helps, and a unique color scheme. That dark green and the cream color on the jerseys, those look great. And with them right away picking up Ryan Suter, it let that Preds culture join over a little bit. So as far as Central teams go, they're my least hated out of all the other teams in the Central. But there's no other real team we talked last week about picking a West Coast baseball team to root for, which is really fun for everybody here, just to give you something for those late night hours in a whole 162 game season. But I never really felt that for a hockey team. There was never anything out there for the Mighty Ducks or the Kings or the Sharks.
That's fair. There's moments. So I had a loose attachment to hockey for most of my life. So that meant I was able to kind of bounce around, right? Like as a young kid, of course I liked the Mighty Ducks. I love the Mighty Ducks franchise.
And there was no team in Arizona when you were really young, right?
That's very true. So I remember the Avalanche being good in the 90s and really digging that team. And so there's moments here and there, but it's mostly been the Coyotes. And of course, now I've been very honest on this show that the Predators have eclipsed the Coyotes. And because of you and because of the trajectory of the team, those things had to come together because I have an allegiance to you, my friend, but it has to be fortified. I like the Islanders. I would say they're quite possibly my number 3 team. I've also grown in affinity because they're, at least in the divisions of yore, they haven't been directly competing with us. I've really liked the Lightning. I really like everything that they're doing. I cannot run with them this year, obviously, because they're competitors in the Discover region. I got paid for that, by the way. But they're a team I've really, really enjoyed.
Oh, man. I just can't because, first of all, the Florida hockey expansion didn't really do it for me when that all happened. It's like, really, do we need the Panthers and the Lightning and all this? I liked the Lightning's jersey as a young kid. Yeah, that was a
Understood.
cool jersey.
It's a good call.
But they knocked the Islanders out of the playoffs a couple times.
Well,
So
that is reason enough to hate a team. There are teams that I loathe and will never not loathe because of that. So I fully support your decision.
yeah, Seattle Kraken, get up there.
I can't
It'll
argue
look
with it.
good. I like what Seattle's doing. I liked the Supersonics.
Of
The Seattle
course.
Supersonics were my number 2 NBA team. Again, partly because of video games.
Oh, of
NBA
course.
Jam, NBA
Sean
Live,
Kemp, Gary
Peyton and Kemp. Oh man, it was
My
so
gosh.
much fun.
Yeah.
Those were the guys that we pretended to be playing driveway ball. I'm Sean Kemp. I'm gonna have 27 kids. I mean,
I mean points. Yeah. Yeah, it's
rad dunks, man.
he really was iconic there. And I was just thinking the other day how for as legendary as he was for his moment in time, he's really somebody who's lost in history. I mean, it's not like he's never acknowledged. So he is. And the lack of a championship helps. But they were in the finals, I believe, one year. They were in the conference finals another year. They were a competitive team throughout the 90s and had some of the best on their team. And as much as I was about to make the argument earlier when we were talking about the Kraken that Seattle is a likable sports city, but I can't fully say that because I hate the Seahawks. So I realize
I do want them to get a team back because I still feel like the Supersonics were unjustly robbed away.
that I wholly agree with, and I still would say that I've never had a reason to dislike the Mariners. I like them. They were fun, obviously fun in the '90s. They got the good A-Rod. They had Ken Griffey Jr. I of course I loved Randy Johnson, of course, and then going into being an Arizona Diamondback. That was a fun team. I love the Sounders. They're fun in MLS. They were a team I rooted for until we have our team in there. I loved the Supersonics. Also a great team name. Just and logos and everything. They just were something that was fantastic. It's just the Seahawks, who frankly I didn't mind because they weren't in the Cardinals division for a long time. And they were a team I liked. And I'll be lying if I said I didn't like Pete Carroll. I kind of actually dig the guy. I think he's a really good coach. But I can't like that city overall because of that team.
I could be wrong here, but it seems to be remembering were the Seattle Supersonics the first team to ever win a playoff series in the NBA as an 8 seed to knock off a number 1 in the first round?
I
I
can't.
want to say that happened.
That's worth
it was
researching.
The Peyton Kemp Sonics.
There was I get it mixed up because there was also the Dikembe Mutombo Nuggets who had an ace seed win in that infamous Dikembe Mutombo kind of crying on the
Yeah,
free
it could
throw
have
line.
been that one too, but
Well, let's go to the stats. I'll see what I can
sometime
discover
around that
here.
era.
Yeah, it definitely would have been.
But in any case, you lose a team the year you draft Kevin Durant. Just cruelty. Taken to Oklahoma, like it ain't right. So
No, it really
it's
isn't.
not a basketball team, but getting the Kraken back is a small bonus, and it makes me like them already. Although we'll see what happens in the expansion draft. Maybe they'll make the wrong moves on our Preds or my Isles, and we won't like those damn sea monsters quite as much. But in any case, it's a comfortable shirt.
It certainly changes. So that always goes a long way. I don't care what the team is. If it's a good-looking, comfortable shirt, I'm wearing that shit. So there's no doubt about that. So I will.
No way, man.
I will
No
side
way.
with that.
The one thing I will defend, I will defend Ben Affleck in whatever that little controversy was where he refused to wear a Yankees hat in a movie. It's like, I'm sorry. I know it's a movie. I know I'm acting, but
Do you think he would have done that if the choice was between a New York Yankees hat and a City Connect Boston hat? I want that to be a good transition, but I also have up
look
on
at you doing segues.
But I also want to say that on May 7th, 1994, the eighth seeded Denver Nuggets defeated the 63-win Seattle Supersonics.
It was the other way
It was the
around.
other way around to advance to the
Okay,
Western Conference semifinals, marking the first time
that's right.
an eight-seeded team won the playoffs.
They
Uh,
were involved in that the first time an 8 seed won, but they weren't the 8.
that's exactly right. So there have been others. The 76ers beat the Chicago Bulls in 2012. You may remember that the Memphis Grizzlies beat the San Antonio Spurs in 2011, and
Grind. All
that's
heart.
right. One of the probably the most famous, I think. Well, maybe it's not actually. Looking at the last remaining one, both of them were fun though. Golden State Warriors, the last likable. No, it wasn't the last likable Warriors team. It's hard to forget that the Curry Warriors were likable for a while, but the Golden State Warriors
before KD.
before K, yeah, exactly before KD, but with Baron Davis, Steven Jackson, Monta Ellis, Matt Barnes, one of my favorites. They beat the Dallas Mavericks, who I think had at that point they were 67 wins, and then the last eighth seed, which if you want to give them credit, in 1999 asterisks, the New York Knicks made a finals run as the eighth seed. With Latrell
Why you putting
Sprewell,
asterisks on that one, huh?
fighting words, right?
But man, we've seen the Houston Asterisks. People don't forget. They were taking some heat in that Oakland series, and especially from the Angels fans. Who knew Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim fans had it in them? But that's been I don't want to say good to see, but kind of good to see.
It's
Throwing the trash cans on the field. The Astros didn't get saved by that damn bubble season, all right? We remember.
That's exactly right. That's the retribution. Is like we knew it was going to come. So, and honestly, maybe it's better for everybody that it happens with minimal capacity or limited capacity. So they get beat up, but the volume and velocity is just a little bit less than what it would have been for safety's sake, and to avoid extra arrests and whatever other headlines may have happened. So maybe we won out there, but I'm glad they're getting razzed for it for sure.
Yeah, it's always nice to see that, it doesn't always get forgotten. It doesn't always get swept under the rug. You did that, you're going to have to pay for it. Dusty Baker goes in there and everybody loves Dusty, trying to rehabilitate that image and say, okay, it's time to stop, guys. That was years ago. We paid our price. It's like, you haven't in the fans' eyes. Not at all.
The fans have not had a chance to yell at you. They deserve a chance to do that. That's bottom line. That's
You
just the
did
way
this. You got to take it. Ryan Braun had to take it. Alex Rodriguez had to take it. Barry Bonds had to take it. You do it. You got to pay for it. All right. And to say it's over and done with. We paid our price. It's nice, but you're not the one who gets to decide that.
Yeah. Sorry. Well, and of course he's got to say that. I mean, that's the line that they have to say. They've got to defend themselves and try to will people into avoiding that kind of outburst. But I think they're the only ones that believe that. I don't think anybody else besides Alex Cora maybe believes that they need to move on.
And Alex Cora and AJ Hinch already have jobs again.
Yeah, and nobody's booing them right now. So that I've heard of at least.
Yeah. All right, we can deal with it though. It's been fun having baseball back. That's for sure.
That is for sure.
Definitely been ready for that. We're so ready for Nashville Sounds games again. The AAA season delayed, but everything's gonna start happening, man. We're less than 2 weeks away from Nashville SC's opener. Then the Sounds will be back shortly after that. The Preds are obviously still playing with some fans in the house.
And
it's a good time to be here.
It is.
It's always a good time to be in Nashville.
And with the with the playoffs on the line, I mean, they're slowly widening that gap, very incrementally. Like we said, 1% better every day.
13-3 in their last 16.
Really impressive. Is this a good team? I missed that. I was showing a bunch of Phoenicians. The the
There ain't no Nashvilleans.
the "You suck" chant and just how special it is. I was trying to illustrate to them when I was at a game. I think he was playing for the. I think I'm getting it mixed up. So I don't know if he was with the Devils then. When PK's brother was goaltending for another
Oh
team,
yeah, that was
and
a good time.
it was, and they were, and of course when we scored on Subban and PK's on our team, we're yelling Subban, Subban, you suck, and it's a little confusing, but it was still pretty fun.
Have you found yourself doing that along to the TV?
Of
Because
course,
absolutely have.
yeah. Well, I don't want to lose my intuition to do that at every time too, because what would really be horrible is when I go to a game next and I'm not ready for the chant. I want to stay warm.
I like it. I love it. I want
Moss,
another goal.
wrong language. Yeah, yeah.
I want catfish fritters.
They might change it to that eventually.
Ah man, sports are great. Sports are great.
No argument here.
How about that finals game though? We're just here coming off the end of the NCAA tournament. We had, like we were talking about on Sunday, of course, on the main show, the Walk It Off on WXNA every Sunday night on your radio here in Nashville and everywhere streaming at WXNAFM.org. We had two of the greatest games in college basketball history back to back. And then we had the men's championship game, the number 1 versus the number 2 seed, this juggernaut matchup, and it was just an ass kicking from the opening tip off. No drama.
No, there was a play. I felt like what Gonzaga did a good job of was at least making you feel like for spurts. And I think it was only because of the narrative that they were such a good team, that they were the overwhelming favorites from the get-go, that they could open this back up. They got it within 10 a few times. And I think it was late in the first half. Maybe actually it feels like 11 minutes in the second half, if I'm remembering correctly. There was an offensive rebound that Gonzaga chased down and then saved. Major hustle play, right? Like there were a lot of great hustle plays from Gonzaga, some great fast breaks. It just looks like they might open it up. Hustle play, kick it back in. Sorry, it was a defensive rebound, and it goes right to Baylor, and they score. And it was just, I feel like that was the tone of the game, right? Like they just could not, whatever effort they put over, because outside of those first few minutes, did not feel like a super sloppy game for Gonzaga. It was just a dominant game by Baylor, especially after the get-go.
That's what I feel like. That dominance at the beginning when Baylor just could not miss a shot, it seemed like. And Gonzaga, the first time I looked at that Gonzaga game, just checking them out after that initial run, said they're playing nervous. They had that undefeated streak on the line.
Yeah.
They had the miracle ending to beat UCLA. They probably felt like that's our sweat moment. It's all gravy now. It's in the bag. And then to come out and just get punched in the mouth by Baylor like that. And yeah, it wasn't that they were playing horrible. Just anything they were trying to do was not working. Baylor was doing whatever they wanted, hitting all their shots, switching on defense, making everything work. And in the second half, that just kind of exaggerated. You're right. The save that just ends up going to Baylor. There were a few moments where a Gonzaga player just lost their dribble.
Yeah.
Lost the ball out of bounds or lost the ball to Baylor. They were missing free throws like crazy. You can't come back if you're missing all your free throws.
No.
They got tight. And Baylor played a fantastic game from whistle to whistle.
The stats show it too. Like usually if I don't know the stats on how often this plays out, but I do know when I'm looking at a game that's dominant, I look at the field goal percentage, and the team that shot a better percentage usually wins. Especially like we've talked about, it's bleeding into the NCAA with 3-pointers, because if you just have an overall better percentage and you shoot a higher percentage of 3-pointers within there, you've widened the gap a lot more. And I also look when I'm rooting for a team and I see that we're shooting 41% versus a team that's shooting 57%, that at halftime, I feel like in general that's going to even out, right? So, in other words, a field goal percentage is a leading indicator of how the game is going and what could possibly happen, because a lot of times it's just being cold, and that you get over that sometimes. This was a weird game, though. I mean, just looking at the statistics, because Gonzaga shot 51% relative to Baylor's 44%, 44.8, so essentially 45%.
That is surprising because it felt like Baylor couldn't miss for the first half. The second half shots weren't falling, but they had such a big lead, and they were hitting their free throws.
And that's got to be a part of it. So the other variables beyond that, which you've already highlighted, essentially are free throw percentage, 89% versus 71%. That's huge. I mean, Gonzaga left 6 points on the board there. Turnovers, absolutely. 5 more turnovers for Gonzaga. But I think the key here really is rebounds. They out-rebounded them 38-22. Offensive rebounds, 16-5. But Gonzaga shot 49 shots. Baylor shot 67 shots. That's an insane amount more that they got off, and that's because of that rebound differential. They had 16 more rebounds, 11 more offensive rebounds. So they just created more opportunities for themselves. And it's a weird story that the stats tell this time that you just don't see in the box score that often. But this was a unique game.
It was definitely not what we expected from that national championship game. And hey, the 76 Hoosiers can pop some champagne because there's no undefeated team since. That does come back to a point that you were making there. One of my favorite gambling techniques, if you want to get in, we're off the air right now. Hey, it's legal in Tennessee anyways. Sports betting's legal and fun in Tennessee. So, hey, we can give out our gambling tips more often. But one of my favorite plays, easiest money in my book, is NBA games, the live money line. Not the live money line, the line points line. So when a bad team gets out to a lead over a good team in the NBA, I will hop on that so quickly. And what's a perfect example of that, not even a bad team, but when the Knicks were up 9 points, or I believe it was 9 points at halftime over the Nets the same day as the national championship game, that line soared up to, you could get 5.5 points betting on the Nets right then. And if you got a much better team, I'll take them to come back and the points.
That's a great point.
That's one of my favorite plays. I've got it that game against the Knicks. I've done it before with the Knicks.
Yeah.
When they were playing the Washington Wizards, and you're
down
a lot early. They actually came back and won that thing. They would have took money line on that one.
Especially at 9 points. I mean, there's a point, obviously, where that gets a lot harder, especially if you're making the bet at halftime. But I mean, I think that fortifies just what we're talking about here, where Gonzaga being down 10, you're kind of feeling like they could do this, and they should at some point. Although the differential between Baylor and Gonzaga.
And if they hit their damn free throws, it might have been a 4 or 5 point game. Welcome
to college basketball. We talked about this on our first show after March Madness started. It is one of the biggest variables out there, and you can predict it a lot more in the NBA. You just have no idea what's going to happen in the NCAA.
So, hey, man, we haven't gotten to it yet. What are we doing? We announced it at the beginning of the show that we're now calling this midweek addendum episode the Walk It Off Happy Hour Hang, the essence of the barroom banter that we do on our radio show every week.
Our strength.
A little addendum to that, a little bonus episode for you. So what you drinking? It's happy hour.
Ooh, good question. So these are my beautiful little happy hour glasses. No, we haven't. I got on my little bar back there with the record player and everything.
You're a classy broad.
I am a classy broad. I am. This is a nice aged rye that I'm just drinking on the rocks. It is. I don't know what it is. Usually, I put the label underneath the decanter so that I remember what it is. But I just moved, so I lost it. It's probably, I don't know, maybe a 10 or 12 year rye, something like that. It's really nice though.
fine brown liquor. That's what that is.
That's exactly what it is. FBL.
What's in that bottle? It's a fine brown liquor.
What are you
But
drinking?
rye,
Yeah.
you've fallen away from your Tennessee roots already.
Yeah. Listen, first
Got the
off,
Southern Grist hat on, representing Nashville. I
I do.
appreciate it.
I do. One of the best breweries
Look,
there are. I love it. I think I'm losing it. There we go. I think I got you back. We're having a few more technical difficulties here, but I got you.
yeah, we're back. We're back.
Yeah, everybody. This
We're
is the
doing this
life
across the damn country. All right.
everybody lives now. If there's anything people can relate to, it's the internet breaking up in front of them in a video chat like this. So I don't feel like we're alone. What?
No, and look at you, man. You've set that background up. If you guys go back and look at our earlier episodes, getting more impressive every time. I keep
Thank you.
saying I'm going to install a bobblehead shelf back here. Start really memorabiliaing this thing out instead of just propping up the signed Bo Outlaw Grizz jersey over there.
Oh, first off,
To
that was
do
a
the
nice
heavy lifting.
that was a nice humble brag on the signed Bo Outlaw jersey. But here's a challenge I have for you. Even without the bobblehead shelf up, you've teased it. I feel like we need to see a bobblehead or two on this happy hour hang coming up. I think we need to see the
If you
bobbleheads that
peek
you got.
in the background of the previous episode, our baseball preview, you can see underneath my left armpit Easter eggs here, like they're the Marvel
Yeah.
Cinematic Universe or some shit.
It is.
Both a Ken Griffey Jr. starting lineup action figure. Big fan of the starting lineups from the 90s that don't look anything like the person they're supposed to be.
They never
But
do.
there's something great about them anyways. As well as one of my personal favorites, a baseball that I got signed here at First Tennessee Park when the, at that time, division rival Las Vegas 51s were a Mets farmed team. I said, hey, there's two of these guys I've got my eye on. I feel like they're going to really be blowing up soon. I want to try see if I can talk to them a little bit. And got out there, did a little scouting report, and got both 51's players Dominic Smith and Brandon Nimmo to sign a baseball.
Yeah.
And that one's sticking with me. It's been some good luck ever since.
I love that. That's a great thing to show off. I love that kind of memorabilia. So, and you've got a lot of that. I love the wealth of stuff that you have. So we'll have to see a little bit more of that on here. That's my gauntlet for you.
Yeah, improve this now that it's a thing. Now that this is the Walk It Off Happy Hour hang, we'll get a little bit more official with it. But I decided in tribute to the beautiful weather we've been having in Nashville now, making up for all this damn storms constantly.
Leave Nashville
It's
alone.
now
Yeah.
officially springtime. It's officially warm out. I'm going to go with my personal favorite, the easiest drinkingest summer beer. That's right. It's a Schlafferhofer.
Schlafferhofer, the Hefeweizen grapefruit. I love it.
Who doesn't like to say Schlafferhofer?
Especially if you put Hefeweizen after that. Schlafferhofer, Hefeweizen. Yeah.
And the Stiegel Radlers have really caught on
Yes, they
at
have.
shows in Nashville. It's weird seeing people drinking
I didn't realize
Radlers
that.
at shows.
I knew they were getting
Yeah.
popular, but it was weird to me to see craft beer at shows. Honestly, like, and
Honestly.
I've been into
And the local
craft beer
beers
for a
made
long
big part
time.
of that.
They really have. That's been. I mean, you can catch a Bear Walker there. You can catch a Yazoo Pale there really easily, and I mean that was from the get go. So, in Blackstone, all of those have been a part of that for a long time, which I appreciate, and that's what opened it up. But it took a long time to get past PBR. But I feel like that's not the mainstay now. I really don't. It's really cool to see the variety of things. As long as I don't see a lot of hard seltzers. Listen, I'm not knocking it. It's not horrible stuff, but like
It's great for if you're hanging out on a boat.
if you're hanging out on a boat,
And you can say the same thing about the Radlers and Schlafferhofers too,
you
but
could. But those are a little different.
they're a little different.
Shandies, you can put a shandy in that boat as well. Not literal boat, in that same category as well.
Oddly enough, not really a fan of Shandies,
It's interesting.
but I love the Schlaffer and I love the Radlers, and also hate grapefruits. Grapefruit itself, absolutely vile, disgusting
Interesting.
fruit.
Interesting.
But the grapefruit beers, not too bad at all.
Well, aren't
And
you a man
I'll
of
let you
mystery?
in on another. I'll let you behind the curtain a little bit more. Possibly from my northern roots, my Yankee blood.
You're a
I
Yankee fan?
get my ass kicked by the. Don't even joke about that, man. I get my ass kicked by the Summers every year here in Nashville. But again, it's been over a decade living here. Has not gotten better. Playing ball in the summers, I'll bring one water bottle to drink and one to pour over my head to get through the game.
As you should.
And a lot of these venues that we love don't have the best air conditioning. I actually wrote a guide once for a certain blog about where the best air-conditioned spots are. A real insider's insider info
It's
for
muy
when you're going to
importante.
shows. But something about these big, tall boys of Radler, or preferably even a little Schlafferhofer, a little less bubbly than the Radler, less sweet, more beery, slightly. They're just refreshing as fuck. And that's what I wanted to go with tonight when it's 80 degrees in Nashville today.
I
Beautiful sunny day.
like that.
Get out in that backyard, get out in a pool, get out in a hammock, and get yourself a Schlafferhofer.
Get your Schlafferhofer
Or
on.
some fine brown liquor, man. Can't go wrong there.
Well, it does feel ironic based on what you're saying because we here in Phoenix are well into the summer. We're into a streak of, I mean, I was out on the lake on Saturday, and it crested 100 degrees. It was horrible.
Have
But
some claws out there?
what's that? I did
Have some
not.
claws with you out there?
No, I went with my go-to, which is, and luckily they're pretty prevalent now. There's a lot of low ABV. They're not IPAs necessarily, but IPA versions, hoppy forward beers. Not super hoppy. I'm not saying you'd love them, because I know you're not a hophead. But I also want to caveat, like they're not like that uber hoppy beer. It's just like a lighter beer that tastes that way. And I think I was drinking the Lagunitas Daytime mostly, but I love the Terrapin Recreation Ale.
Yeah, these are your session IPAs, right?
Your session IPAs. It's exactly right. One of the best. You
Yeah.
talk about hydrating yourself. Dogfish Head's Sea Quench, which is a Gosa, and it's a little bit sour, really
Mhm.
nice,
Real nice.
very light, low ABV. They made that to where it would actually hydrate you rather than dehydrate you, even though it has alcohol in it. So it's an incredible
I
win.
believe that was, yeah.
Hey, I believe every marketing
We'll have to test
campaign.
that one out, all right?
Yes.
Get out on the lake with a 12-pack. I feel so refreshed.
Should we do instead of like our own version of Super Size Me, where instead of water, we just drink Sea Quench for a month?
You know, I'm a big fan of the Sea Quench as well, so let's go.
One of the best. It really is one of the best. So it at least gets you much closer to that. But we're well into summer here, so I'm with you, man. I don't look forward to the summers, but as soon as it hits 100 degrees, and just like when it would hit 90 in Nashville, 90 in Nashville is just rough, man. And
The humidity, dude.
I never got used to it
Yeah.
either. And then I said, oh, well, I can deal with the dry heat. And then July and August come around out here. And so in short, July and August suck. So that's my stance. No matter
Gotta
where
hydrate.
you are. Gotta hydrate.
Gotta hydrate.
Yep.
And hey, you alluded to it earlier. It was a beautiful segue.
Thank you.
And then we didn't get
we
into
never
it.
weighed it. We segged but didn't weigh.
How can we segue back into it smoothly, huh? Hey, the Preds were wearing their reverse retro uniforms today.
They were.
Their victory. So about alternate uniforms.
Yeah. I got to remind myself on the Predators reverse retro. But
They don't really do it for me. And again, they feel like they've taken the place of the Winter Classic,
yeah,
which organically became their alternate uniform because everyone loved it.
yeah.
So they started using it as the alternate right then. That's how it's supposed to happen, an alternate uniform.
Agreed. And so the limitation there is if you're not playing in a Winter Classic, you're not getting one. So
No, it's anything. You know, if you get a commemorative patch and it's an especially killer design, you might see elements of that creep in.
True.
just something a little organic, or even your fan art. Sometime, some way, this kind of thing's going to happen. I'll even say it with the Mets right now. It was an entire fan outcry that led them to say officially this year they will bring back the black 90s uniforms, the black 2000 World Series Mets.
Yeah, that's a Mike
I'm
Piazza
not a
classic.
huge fan of the black Mets jerseys. Mets are blue and the orange. That's just the way it is. But how can you have a Red Sox uniform without a Red Sox? This is what's getting me, man. This is a big time what burns my biscuits. Seeing the announcement today, and you can see it over on our Instagram at Walk It Off Radio, that Nike have announced a City Edition uniform for the Boston Red Sox. And I didn't see it coming. I hate to say I didn't see it coming. We were bitching about the swoosh on the front breast of the uniforms being so distracting. After years of the little Majestic logo on the arm sleeve, that front patch just looked terrible on some of the jerseys. It was kind of distracting. But Nike had an even bigger playing game. They know they can make all the money in the world switching up those uniforms constantly. The more uniforms that are out there, the more people are going to buy. And they're bringing City Edition. To add uniform. Red Sox uniform.
Yeah, we had some internet breakup there, so I can edit a little bit of that.
Do I have to start the rant over again?
Yeah. Let's go back to just trying to think where it started to cut out, but. I mean, just go back to when you started talking about Boston in particular. So you were going on to Nike. You knew that they could make a lot of money on that, and then that's where it started going rough. And
we saw with these swooshes on the breast of the jerseys, just kind of distracting for your teams. But Nike had bigger plans in mind, man. They were doing it, and I hate that I didn't see it. I really hate that I didn't see it coming. But the City Editions, bringing it to MLB, and it's nothing against the jersey itself. If this was just a Boston T-shirt, a fan jersey or something like that, or something they were selling in the shop, I actually liked the design. Again, we've talked about the Chargers uniforms a million times. You can't go wrong with powder blue and gold. It's a great looking color combination.
It really is.
The layout is nice. I like the font. I like the tribute to the Boston Marathon that takes place in it. It's a good-looking jersey. But when it's worn on the field, that's a disaster. And it's starting to slippery slope. You're going to watch the Boston Red Sox take the field in yellow jerseys in just a couple of weeks. And it's going to be so wrong. And it's going to lead MLB down the slope of what we have in NBA, where we do like a couple of those city uniforms. There's a couple real nice unis there that have become something that grew with the fans. But most of them are pretty disposable, pretty unremarkable. And in the meantime, it's hard to tell what teams are playing half the time.
That's what I don't like.
If they're mixing it up like that, the yellow Red Sox, that's way worse than the orange Orlando Magic, which has taken this long to get used to.
You're used to it?
The black and gold Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah.
It's very, very disturbing to see that. I'm going to hate it. I'm going to hate seeing it on the field. As much as I actually like the jersey itself from a pure aesthetic standpoint, it's a real good-looking uniform. But when the Boston Red Sox take the field wearing a yellow jersey, it's just going to burn the hell out of my biscuits. And then when we see it through a few more, they're stretching it out. So every team's going to have one in the next 3 years. The Yankees have always really fought hard not to change their classic uniforms. It's been memorable for turn ahead the clock night and everything. They said 100 years from now, 20 years from now, this is the uniform the Yankees will be wearing. Are they going to have one? It said every team, the last team to get theirs unveiled during this season will be the Los Angeles Dodgers, another team with iconic uniforms. But there's a possibility there because everybody really likes their spring training uniforms. That could be a natural third jersey. But if it's a Dodger uniform that doesn't have any blue in it, that's bullshit.
So first off,
Nike, it's probably just going to be gray on gray.
and that's a way to go. This is such a difficult topic now. Like, this used to be straightforward, I feel like. Either a jersey sucked or it didn't. And now we're getting into...
If a team updates their jersey, they update their jerseys.
Yeah. And there's still some major, like, offensive... Color rush in general is horrible for the NFL because it not only is it hard to recognize some teams, but it's just offensive on the TV. It doesn't create something good. It creates weird pajamas. First off, I want to make sure, Drew, this is just a welfare check. I want to make sure that all your fire alarms, have you tested them? They're all good because your biscuits are burning a lot, and I want to make sure that you've got that checked out.
Biscuits, man.
I know. So it's
and
understandable.
I can't wait. The Colorado Rockies are also on the list this year, and starting from purple, I'm on full nightmare uniform alert for that one.
Diamondbacks too. Look at what they've done. Like, both of them, I think, are going to be in a great position.
Already forgotten the bloody leg uniforms for the Diamondbacks?
They're going to have Sedona red everywhere now. Or not. The cool thing about the Diamondbacks is they have a whole
teal,
color
black,
palette that they could dive into that is underutilized.
dark gray.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. And honestly, it works.
They just got rid of that, man.
What I struggle with this, I don't know, is so much of it, I think, depends. I loved our discussion about the NBA City Edition uniforms, because we were dividing them up less on how they looked. I mean, that was certainly a part of it, but more on, like, did the means justify the end? In other words, did they have a good enough story to tell to justify doing something different and wildly different? And some of them did, some of them didn't. And some of them were in the middle. And I think the Suns were in the middle where they didn't have a great story to tell, but I have grown to like the execution of their city editions. So,
and adding the custom courts has really been a bonus to that as well for the NBA.
That's true. And something that just doesn't resonate in the MLB. There's just something about branding in that way that just doesn't resonate in Major League Baseball, which is why if I could make an election or a recommendation to Major League Baseball, and I haven't decided where I stand on all the city editions, because I like them doing something to honor something for their city. I like forcing them to find some creativity. And frankly, I like, as a fan, an opportunity to buy something that's a little different sometimes. I think that's kind of cool. But I haven't fully
Maybe I should have got something stronger for tonight's episode.
I think you might have. But I'm still not going to establish a stance on those. I got to think about it a lot more. But what I wish the MLB would have done is just stuck with a precedent that they did such a good job of doing. We don't pat the MLB on the back for, like, being avant-garde in some of these ways, but they did a really good job by just doing things like changing the players' names to the nicknames. That achieves the same thing, right? Like, they kept the fact that they have this classic expectation and found a way to fit it into that niche. And that is a great way of doing it. I wish they would find more creative ways to stay within their niche there. And I don't know, maybe they will. Maybe these city editions will challenge some teams like the Yankees to balance that in the middle, and they'll be able to do it. But it doesn't look like it. I expect extreme things because it's a one-off. They can see what happens or what doesn't happen, or what works and what doesn't work.
And they sprung it on us. We had no idea this was coming. They did a great job keeping that secret and protected from leaks.
Left field.
And we haven't seen any of the other teams. You know, it's not going to be every team in the league this year. It's all very, very strange. It does feel like a test pilot thing. I'm very glad you brought up the Players Weekend uniforms. Because, yes, even the Yankees wore different uniforms on Players Weekend. And those uniforms were a huge departure from classic jerseys. But that was for a certain event. It was for the Little League World Series. It was for a fantastic event. that Major League Baseball does, and it was fitting within the event. It was a one-off. There was no expectation that these were going to be a team's third jersey for the rest of the season. And then they ruined it years later by taking away the Little League aspect of it and just making them white on white and black on black uniforms, which was terrible and took out all the good vibes you had, the entire point of making them look like Little League uniforms in the first place.
Yep. Yep. So it's just a pendulum swing wildly in the other direction. And you know the gist of it, right? Like we talked about it with the NBA. When they made those changes, no matter how good or bad, they made a shit ton of money. And they know that if they do this, because they're seeing the NBA do it, they're seeing the NFL do it, that they can make a shit ton more money. And certainly they're grasping for straws now after the COVID year. So, I mean, as much as we can defend and find the bright spots and looking at these cool things, and there are. I mean, sports make money and we love everything about it for the most part. Like we love the things that they do. We buy into it. Well, I buy into a unique uniform, especially another shirt or another jersey. I like getting the All-Star jersey for one of my favorite players, things like that. World Baseball Classic, things like that. Those are cool to have the unique variations. With that said, I don't mean to diffuse it, but like that's what it's all about. And MLB doesn't have a great track record of doing things otherwise. That's what they're looking for right now is money.
And respect the color palette at the same time. Respect what you're going in with. Are we gonna be watching a Red Sox game on Patriots Day weekend this year, and they're a yellow logo in the scorebug? It's like the NBA where you have to check to see which color is which in the scorebug every game.
Yep.
I don't want to see that happen in baseball. It's the same feeling I have to make an incredible leap of comparison here. It's the same feeling I have here living in Nashville with all this damn tearing down buildings and putting up new ones around. If you're going to take a building down, if you're going to build, I understand there needs to be progress, but look at the neighborhoods you're in and try to fit into it a little bit. If your entire neighborhood is a bunch of red brick houses and you're going to throw up a 2-story tall and skinny with vinyl siding, it's going to look like shit and ruin everything.
Yeah,
there's beautiful vinyl siding,
but they don't take it's out of context, right? And Chris Cobb made a really good comment on that. He had an interview in the Nashville scene relative to Exit In's trials right now, raising money to try to save the Exit In on Elliston Place, and a call out: donate if you can, give them the best chance that they can to preserve that place, because if they buy it, what they're going to do is make it an historical place that will be much more protected than it is right now, and they haven't had outright ownership to be able to do that recently. So it's very important.
Dude, next time you're in town, you won't even recognize Rock Block.
I'm scared.
So please let the end stay. Please let Exit In stay.
Some of our favorites.
It's all that's left there.
That what Chris Cobb said though that mimicked what you said is he said if you're going to move in, and it's a simple ask, and really this goes to the commissioners and everybody is like if you're going to, which with MLB springing this on us. And frankly, Nike, who does a great job of consumer surveying, that's been a core of their brand for a long time, and just understanding those things and consumer sentiment is ask people around you. Chris said, just if you're going to plan to do something, ask what fits into the neighborhood. Go talk to the people that live there. Go talk to the other business owners. In the sports world,
be a neighbor. Be part of the neighborhood.
Go talk to the fans. Understand what is important to preserve and what is worth changing and what could improve and what doesn't need improvement, and spend time on those things.
You know what the fans said resoundingly? They said the Padres should go back to brown and yellow, and it looks fantastic. That's how you change an MLB uniform. You go with a reboot. You do the whole thing over again. Or
and you'll still make money.
Little tweaks. Look at the Brewers this year. They kind of tried to have it both ways. The classic light blue, the classic logo, and their new colors. Throwing a little bit of everything into there. And I think fans were generally happy. Not as happy as they would have been with a full retro kit, but hey, we can't all do that all the time.
That's a worthwhile experiment. If you're going to experiment, do some incremental thing. Do some feedback. Get some feedback. And the truth is, if you do something like the Padres did, you're going to make a shit ton of money again because people are going to buy that. So there's the opportunity doesn't dissipate by doing it the right way.
And it isn't stifling creativity. I mean, look at what the Reds did last season with their anniversary year when they wore a different decades throwback uniform every weekend of the season and just had sleeveless uniforms. They had the whole 9 yards, but all of those had a reason to exist. And it was fun for the fans, and everybody got into it. And we're like, okay, what are the Reds going to be wearing this weekend? It was fun. It wasn't just an obvious money grab, and it wasn't an out of the blue complete change of your identity for one day, and then it switches back, and we're supposed to pretend it never existed and just wear our alternate uniforms. It's for the pink hat crowd.
Yes.
Or the green hat crowd.
Or the green hat crowd. Yep.
Or hell, I'm sitting here wearing a Father's Day special hat. MLB cashes in on this.
They've been doing it for a
we
long
do
time.
it.
Yeah.
There's things they do that make sense. There's things that make sense as one-offs. But City Edition uniforms coming to MLB is something that I'm not excited about at all. Even if, on a purely aesthetic level, like we said, I do really like the new Boston uniform. But I'm going to hate seeing it out on the field.
Yep. That's a
full
tough
hatred.
It's a tough conundrum. It really is. Like you said, maybe a shirt, a couple of hats. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out because we're certainly in for the next decade plus of seeing a weird soap opera play out of jersey variations.
And as much as I hate to defend him, you're still talking about the same Major League Baseball that is banning Trevor Bauer from wearing a custom belt logo.
Hypocrisy at every turn. There's no doubt. That doesn't make him any money, man. That's just how it works.
Yeah, but we're seeing a little bit of the loosening up. One of the things that we saw in the Home Run Derby a few years back, and it was one of my predictions that we'd see come to baseball fully soon, is the custom bats, the colored bats. And MLB still has a rule against that in their games. They've made a couple of, exceptions, and the Home Run Derby, obviously. There was just an article in what was it, ESPN, one of the big publications, on Victus, the company that makes these incredible artwork custom bats that we saw in the preseason, in spring training games, that we've seen in batting practice, that we see in the Home Run Derby. That's something that feels like it's going to get loosened up on. Again, it took the Oakland A's wearing white cleats to make it acceptable. And then it became a whole team. It was just recently that the whole team didn't have to be wearing the same color cleats. And everybody could be wearing their own pair that looked different. So
Socks.
change comes.
Yeah.
The stance socks changed up a lot of the look on everything.
Yep.
The arm sleeves, everything. Everybody's got their own custom logos on their wristbands and their armor now. There are venues that are opening up, and some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't. But it all comes down to, like you were saying before, be a neighbor. If you're going to do this, do something that makes sense, that'll get the fans excited, and not be a vinyl siding house in the neighborhood of brick ones.
Couldn't have said it better myself, man. I think that's a great place to end this, honestly, is with that call to action for our city and for our sports franchises. They move in, and we see that all the time with them, trying to take money to build stadiums. And one of the things that we appreciate about sports is that it creates community, and what owners need to strive to do is to build that community rather than divide it and tear it down. And certainly look at that from an economic perspective. And the leagues and the commissioners of those leagues and the owners of those leagues need to look at how they can be better stewards of their community as well. And we've talked about that all 2020 and all 2021 because it goes well beyond jerseys. It's certainly in terms of social stances, and in terms of how they give back to their community and all of those things. So very important, and we're hoping that with all the trials that Nashville's been through over the last 18 months, that there's less of these and more community coming together to strengthen it and make it more neighborly than more Hilton-y, for lack of a better term.
Hey, do what you can. Let's all take care of each other like we say all the time,
Here, here.
and try to keep some of our institutions around. But yeah, always good
Here's to
talking
that.
to you, buddy.
Cheers, brother.
Thanks to everybody tuning in for Walk It Off Happy Hour Hang, our
Here we
laid
are,
back
midweek.
midweek barroom banter. Good time as always, and please make sure to tune in every Sunday night or anytime in the archives over at wxnafm.org. This is our nice, loose, fun barroom banter. That's our tight professional radio programming on 101.5 FM here in Nashville, Tennessee, and streaming at wxnafm.org anywhere worldwide on Sunday nights. And of course, if you want to interact with us, hit us up anytime. Social media at Walk It Off Radio, or send us an email, walkitoffradio@gmail.com. It's the only thing you got to remember.
Walk It Off
Get at
Radio.
us. Get yourself in the conversation. What do you want us to talk about? Let's have some fun with it, man, because sports are great.
We're here, and we'll see you on
Sports are fun.
the radio on
And
Sunday
that's-
night. That's right.
See you on the radio, buddy.